You do not expect Aaron Donald to report to Rams camp today. So explain to the audience that doesn't fully understand what the significance of this day is towards that process.
Well, Greeny, today is the deadline that Aaron Donald has to report till. And if he doesn't report, he does not get credited for an accrued season. And because he held out last year and because he would not get an accrued season, that would mean that at the end of this season, he would become a restricted free agent rather than an unrestricted free agent. It's really rather a moot point anyway, even though the deadline does exist today, because after the season, the Rams would simply put the franchise tag on him if the two sides are unable to have a deal by then. And if another team were interested in Aaron Donald, it could still sign him to an offer sheet, whether he's a restricted free agent or an unrestricted free agent. But today would be the deadline that he'd have to report by to make sure that he could still potentially be an unrestricted free agent after the season if the two sides can't get a deal done. But he's not going to report today. He'll be a restricted free agent, and he's betting, and he's right, that it's not going to matter in the long run, that one way or another, somehow they'll find some sort of common ground that they have not been able to find during the last 20 months of negotiations.
You know, just sort of quickly and briefly, because we've been talking about it here a lot this morning, both on and off the air. Like, what's going on here? People will look at this from the outside and they'll say, this guy's such an obviously great player. Yeah. They've re-signed Gurley. They've re-signed Cooks. They have this great team that's all in and going for it. Why is this not getting done?
It's a complex issue. It's not a simple thing where you could just say, well, if the Rams just offered more or Aaron Donald wanted less. I think that you have to look at so many different factors. I think if Aaron Donald had taken the deal last year at some point, I think it would have made him the highest paid player, defensive player in football. He didn't want to do that. And again, he's determined to go to a certain spot. Now, when you get 20 months into this and you skip a year of not taking that deal, you have to wonder, he bypassed certain money last year that he didn't make. So now maybe he wants to make up some of that money in this year's deal. I mean, there's a lot of factors here. The fact of the matter is the two sides have not gotten close to a deal. There's probably distrust on both sides. There's probably instances here where they wish they had gotten it done. But ultimately, in the end, it comes down to Aaron Donald choosing to take the deal or not take the deal. And he has not felt comfortable that the Rams offered him a deal that he found palatable and acceptable at that point in time. And so he continues to sit. He continues to train on his own. I'm sure he's continuing to get more and more upset at the situation when he sees the Rams go out and sign other players like Todd Gurley and Brandon Cooks to deals that he has not gotten yet. And so anytime anything goes on, as long as this one has, bad feelings only increase all the way around.
Let me go to New England for a second here as they part ways with Malcolm Mitchell yesterday, third-year wide receiver. And so that got people in our meeting this morning mentioning the name Dez Bryant. That would feel like sort of a Belichickian kind of a move, buying really low on a potential, star player in a strange circumstance. Do you see any chance of that? What else is there in the wide receiver market they might be looking at?
Look, I think that they've went out and made their moves at the wide receiver position. People forget this, obviously, but last year at this time, they traded for Philip Dorsett, who's looked good in training camp. They signed Cordarrelle Patterson for the Minnesota Vikings. They signed Chris Hogan away from the Buffalo Bills. They'll get Julian Edelman back from a 4-game suspension. They drafted Braxton Berrios late in the draft. They have other players that they had on the practice squad last year. So while it's not the stellar group of receivers, there's not Brandon Cooks, who was traded to the Rams. There's not Danny Amendola, who left during free agency. It's not that usual list of characters. I don't think you just go find a wide receiver off the street today that comes in and helps Tom Brady and helps this offense become what it was. I think that they're going to rely on what they have. Now, look, anything's always possible. You never know what Bill Belichick is going to do. But my sense would be that they have a group of receivers on that roster now that they're moving forward with. And I think that they're confident that they will emerge. And if they can't emerge, then maybe you get more contributions out of Rex Burkhead catching the football from the running back position and James White catching the football from the running back position. They have weapons, but it's just not the way we're used to seeing it done in New England.
And so quickly, where does all of this leave Dez Bryant? Here's a huge name and a player who still obviously can be a contributor of some nature who doesn't have a job, and we're going to start having preseason games. Where's he?
Well, he's on the street right now, and again, you have to find a situation that he finds palatable, that he feels like he's comfortable joining. That has not happened. I think there are a certain number of teams that would have interest in him. It's a dwindling list over time. So to find one of those teams that has an interest in him that he's interested in hasn't materialized, and that's if he wants to play. We don't even know that he wants to play for sure. So again, everybody's waiting for Dez Bryant, but nothing has gotten close just yet. I think he's had chances that haven't interested him. I think other teams haven't been interested in him. and it just hasn't worked out to this point.